Welcome everyone to our regular meeting for Monday, February the 28th. It is now 5:30 p.m. and I'll call the meeting to order. We had an opportunity to review the agendas. Start with the consent agenda. Councillor Gullickson.
Okay. I was just going to add something to in camera. Is that okay? Right now?
I'll give you an opportunity to do that after we deal with the consent agenda for sure. Councillor Dallas.
I'll make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. One last call. Nothing anyone wants removed from there then? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. Next, with respect to the regular agenda, Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to add 2 items to in camera, please. 1 land and 1 labor.
Very good. We'll see that those are recorded with the appropriate FOIP numbers then. Administration will take care of that and make sure they line up. Just so I don't forget to mention last meeting, Councillor Dallas, thank you for chairing the meeting. Hopefully things went well. It was a rewarding experience for you. Appreciate it. I had lots of good feedback, so I was watching from afar. Thank you. Any other? Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a question on those added items. Do either of them require a decision to be made?
I don't believe so.
Just for information. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Connick.
I also move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. See other lights on, please go ahead and vote. Well, that's everything there. That is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. Next up, we do have an open forum this evening. With us today is Mr. Perry Watson, here to speak to us about the bylaw ticketing process and questions with regard specifically to the sidewalk clearing. I understand. Mr. Watson, please make yourself comfortable on either of those seats. I'm going to interrupt you just before you get started. For the benefit of everyone in the back, I'm going to have you use the microphone and we'll just turn that on for you. And once the red light, there we go, the red light on. If you could just move that a little bit closer to your voice, and then everyone at home and in the gallery can hear you as well. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's going to be terrible. So for all of you who don't know who I am, my name is Perry Watson and I operate All in One Property Management. We moved into Lacombe about 1975. I opened up my own business in 1984, so I've been around a while. You can see by the gray hair, obviously, or the lack of hair, therefore. Anyways, what I'm here to discuss with you guys today is about the policy regarding snow removal. And I think that maybe perhaps you can revisit it. I'm not asking for a whole thing, but what happened is my office received a ticket on the afternoon of Thursday, February 15th. My office called me immediately to notify me that it was a snow removal ticket. I went to the office the next day, obviously, and contacted the city office because that was a Friday, so the following week. And I talked with the bylaw officer, very pleasant lady, by the way. And we briefly discussed what was going on, and she said that their hands are basically tied once a ticket is issued. And so I says, well, so what steps were taken? And she says, well, we put a door knocker, like a placard on the door that says, hey, you have 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever. I mean, I've never seen one, but whatever it is. So you have this amount of time to follow up and make sure that your, sidewalks are cleared. I agree with all that. And so I says, okay, so what happened after that? She says, well, we went back and we checked it and yeah, it was all clear. And I says, well, then I don't really understand why I'm getting a ticket. And I'm not sure if you guys understand or not. So I went and I talked with the tenant and he says, I says, listen, I got to ask you some questions. What's going on with this ticket thing? Because I got this ticket in the mail. Now, I'll get into when I received the ticket, but I just called the tenant and I said, I received this ticket in the mail. And I says, like, what happened with this? What's going on with your place, right? You've lived here for almost 5 years and, you haven't really been giving me any trouble. So I asked him these questions. How many times do you think that you shoveled this winter, or was this the first time you shoveled? Have you been contacted by bylaw or neighbors in the past? Has anybody reached out to you saying that they fell or had any other concerns regarding your property? I asked, were you surprised by the door tag or tickets? Do you have anything else that you'd like to bring up to council? So those are my questions. His response, I've been keeping it clear all winter. I've never had a warning. I've not been contacted in the past by bylaw or any neighbors or anything about the sidewalks at all. I was surprised about the ticket after clearing the sidewalk before the date warning, like, cause I guess I give a day or two. I'm not sure, cause I didn't get, I'm not privy to the ticket. The date warning said it had to be done by. So this is my question, guys. So I'm a landlord. I have, well, now 300 less properties than I used to have. And don't go saying, oh yeah, you big rich bugger. I want you to instead think it's just like any one of you guys. So if you had a rental property and your tenant has an issue, whatever the issue might be. And so in the past, we've had issues, for instance, ATCO Gas might call me up and say, hey, Perry, there's an issue with a situation. We might have bylaw call me up and say, hey, the grass is long on this property. Bylaw would call me up and we could always solve everything right away. But now, what I have is I've got a ticket for $250, even though the stuff's been done. Now, when I talked to the bylaw officer, I asked her, I says, well, so I got a ticket here for $250, right? And she says, yeah, you got a ticket for $250. And I says, well, I received the ticket.
Mr. Watson, just one more, I was gonna have just to remind you. So that was your 5-minute allotment, and I neglected, perhaps the legislative assistant did tell you that you had 5 minutes. I think you're aware of that. But I will allow you a couple of more minutes to conclude your.
I'll talk quicker.
Okay.
Hey, so I got a ticket. It says, hey, pay within this amount of time. And the time was not allowed because the ticket came in late into my office. And therefore, they said, hey, you can pay at half price at this time. I just think we need to change it. I think that the door knocker, or like my summarization here, if the door knockers enough and the people are cleaning the sidewalks, do you really need to issue the $250 ticket? If so, okay. The thing is, if you send it to me, my tenant may not be able to pay it, but I can certainly pay it. But I don't get the ticket until way after the time. And then after 22 days, it says that you're taking my license and registration away on the bottom of the ticket. Because you're sending it to provincial court and we have to go to a provincial court. Okay, sorry.
Thank you for that summary. I appreciate it. So bylaw does fall under the realm of our Director Piche. And without necessarily referring to this specific case, could you outline the procedure in general for a violation with regards to sidewalk maintenance, please?
Certainly, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So when it comes to tickets for snowfall and sidewalk clearing, after snowfall, there's either patrols or complaints that happen with our bylaw enforcement. They have 48 hours. Every resident in the city has 48 hours to clear their sidewalks after a snowfall, unless there is a safety concern. And that was one of the changes that we made in the traffic bylaw this last iteration here. If a violation occurs, a door hanger is put onto the resident's household, and also a ticket is prepared to be sent out in the mail at that same time. Now, we do not give any warnings for tickets. What the door hanger does do is that it allows the people to clear the sidewalk without any added costs of contract services. Because what happens when we do have a violation, the our city contractor is called to make sure that the area is cleaned up within the next day. So that is what the door hanger is for, is to notify them that if they clean it, then they will not have any additional charges for that. But there are no warnings for the tickets because everybody is given that 48 hours to clear their sidewalks after snowfall.
Thank you for that.
May I clarify?
Certainly.
So you're saying that after a snowfall, there's 48 hours, but not after the door knocker ticket is issued. So it's just anybody in Lacombe, in the city of Lacombe, which you know there's thousands of people here. I guarantee if I drove down the street, I would make a ton of money. So I need you to visit that and see if that's the right way of thinking about this.
So with that type of comment, I'm going to assume you have an alternative that we could consider, and I would be happy to hear it.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not here as part of town council, nor am I here to tell you how to do your job, because that is definitely not my job. I'm just a citizen. But what I believe is if there's a door knocker that's put on the property and within 48 hours or 24 hours, whatever the case is, if the sidewalk's cleared, I somehow feel that maybe the penalty should be less than the $250 by the time it hits my office.
Which, as you outlined, it is half of that if you pay it promptly.
Yes, if we would even get it before the time expired.
Fair enough. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Watson? Very good. So normally with situations like this, we do delve into specific cases a little further. Administration does, just to make sure that things are in alignment, and they will be contacting you with an outline if in fact they are. And certainly we can schedule a discussion on adjustments to bylaw, as we do with all of our bylaws from time to time, and make adjustments that better reflect the intent of it.
Absolutely. And sir, I mean no disrespect. Just one further comment. I don't think the bylaw should be out there punishing the poor people, you know, the tenants and such, because I mean, we can't always get to our thing, especially if we're out at work or, you know, out of town or whatever the situation might be, which we don't know the situation, right? But in regards to that, I think a simple door knocker without a fine might be a proposal. And then if they go back in 2 days, yeah, definitely $250. And I agree with that. I just think this might have to be visited.
And certainly in the past, it was done like that. And this was felt at the time that it was not having the results that we wanted. So it was changed to this current system. But that's not to say that we can't look at it again. So
You
thank
bet.
you for bringing it up.
And again, I apologize again. I know I'm overstepping my time boundary, but if perhaps the bylaw officer would contact the property manager, like they had in the past 38 years. My phone number is the same, my address is the same. I mean, it's a shame to get a letter in the mail versus a quick phone call saying, hey, fix this problem.
Point taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Director Lapointe, as we move into requests for decision. Item 6.1, the council strategic plan review alternatives is your item, I believe.
Actually, Coordinator Vaughn will be presenting this evening.
Very good. I'll update my notes accordingly.
Mike, good to go?
Yeah, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the City of Lacomb's proposed strategic plan review. As you are aware, the strategic plan is a vital document that sets the direction and priorities for Council's term and guides the city's decision-making and resource allocation. The plan is not set in stone, but rather evolves and adapts to the changing circumstances and needs of our community. This is why administration is proposing a strategic plan review for Council to provide direction on the city's strategic plan priorities for the 2024 to 2027 period. The review would be a valuable opportunity for Council to engage in a facilitated discussion on the vision, mission, values, goals, and objectives of the city and identify key issues and opportunities for the future. The review will also help align the city's strategic direction with the expectations and aspirations of our residents, businesses, and stakeholders. The outcome of the review would inform the preparation of the draft strategic plan, which will be presented to Council for approval later in 2024. Administration is prepared for potential options for the review, which vary in cost, duration, location, and facilitation. Option 1 would be a 2-day in-person review at an off-site location with a professional facilitator. This option will provide Council with an immersive and focused experience away from distractions and interruptions. Option 2 would be a 2-day in-person review at a regional venue with a professional facilitator. This option will provide Council with a similar experience as option 1, but closer to Lacombe. Option 3 would be a 1-day session here in Lacombe with a professional facilitator. This option will provide Council with a condensed and efficient session that would cover the essential elements of a strategic plan process. Option 4, Council can also elect to maintain the current strategic process as is. We believe the strategic plan review is a worthwhile investment that would benefit Council and the city in the long run. We are confident that any of the options presented would result in a high quality and relevant strategic plan that would serve as a roadmap for the city's future success. Tonight, tonight we are seeking Council's approval to hold a strategic plan review in spring 2024 and to select one of the options presented today. We are happy to answer any questions you may have, and we thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for this. I totally value strategic planning, don't get me wrong, but I do have some questions about this request for decision. Somewhere in there it said that it's a best practice to maybe put a bit more emphasis on the time that we spend doing strategic planning. And I was just curious where it was best practice from. So that would be my first question. Larger municipalities where counselors are full-time, maybe, I'll just throw that there. Then this proposal also asks for 2 more days away for counselors. For those of us that did or are currently working full-time, that's that's an ask that's larger than I would have wanted to consider before. We only did strategic planning one time in the term, our first term. So I'm curious why we are now suddenly doing 2 strategic planning sessions in this term. Just throwing that out there. And then I'm just super curious about this destination location. Just throwing that out.
Mayor Creasy, may I?
Certainly.
Councillor Hoekstra, I think in terms of alignment with other municipalities, that would take a bit more research from administration we can get back to you on. But I do feel that most council administration go back to their strategic planning in some way every year, and that's what we are looking to do as a proposal, to create more of an annual look back on what we've created to make sure that we've not only stayed on it, but also that the strategic plan priorities are relevant throughout the entire term of council. That would be the idea. To your other question there, is rather than just that one time at the beginning of a term, this would be like an annual process where council would review to make sure that they're not only in alignment with council with what they set out in the first place, but also if there's emerging issues or if there's more to be done, and keep it up to date. So more of a organic document, I guess, would be aiming for. So
Thank you for that. Given that our CAO is not here with us this evening, not anything against our acting CAO. However, we did task CAO Gowdy with identifying areas within the organization where there are gaps and where we can make improvements and how things are ran. I think that this was identified as one that was substantially different than most other communities. How we choose to address them naturally is up to council, but this is one area where there was definitely some need for improvement. And I think that after the last session, we can all speak to the effectiveness of it. However, when I think that the focus is a little greater when we don't have the pressures of our day-to-day lives easily accessible to us. And I think that was the reasoning, I'm going to say, behind a couple of the other alternatives with the alternate location and professional presenters. Is that a fair assessment?
that'd be fair, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy.
Councillor Hibbs.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So when I first saw this item, I was actually pleased because I do recall saying in our first term that I was surprised that the way that the timing of its strategic plan fell, that it was more or less a job of a very new council to just leap right into it. And I felt that there should be some overlap. So in that regard, I would say that I appreciate what this is trying to say. However, I do have some concerns that perhaps it's too much into the next term. I have concerns that like obviously this council's experience, most of us have been on at least 2 terms at this point. So we kind of know, we kind of know the jam. We know what that should look like when we know what our vision is for the community. But that's not necessarily going to be reflected in the next council that's elected to these chambers. So I guess my initial concern is that I feel like the 2027 is a little bit of an overreach. I do like where maybe 2026, just so that a new council, because it could potentially be a brand new council like this council was largely at one time. It gives them something to start with, and so they don't have to feel like they're thrown into the deep end right off the bat. And then as far as like, keeping strategic planning and the strategic plan sort of top of mind on a continual basis, I do agree with that. I do want to see that. I would like to see that in regards to maybe a dedicated committee meeting, whether that's once or twice a year. I definitely echo and I appreciate the concern that Councillor Hoekstra has made with the demands of time of this position. If you're doing it really well, it's taking a lot of your time. And for those of us that do have work, whether it be full-time or whatever on top of that, and again, I'm thinking of current counselors and I'm thinking of future counselors. This can be an overwhelming job for people that are considering taking on the role. And I just don't want the commitment to continue to balloon that it does become impossible, except for unless you happen to be in a situation where you're retired or it's just it becomes such a subsection of the community that can now represent in this chair, and I don't want to see that. So I just really ask administration to sort of keep that in mind when they're thinking about these things. While I would love to donate 2 days of my life to delve into this stuff, I love this stuff. But fact of the matter is I have a real life too, and I have to keep a balance.
Councillor Conick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Councillor Hibbs must be a mind reader because you basically said what I was going to say. I agree our current document goes to 2026. I don't believe we should be extending beyond that because I think that is the job of the next council to really do a hardcore dive into that. And there's a year after the next election, roughly, that they have the existing plan that they can work with and then jump into a 2-3 day session and figure out where they want to go. So I totally agree with that. And again, I totally agree with Councillor Hibbs. I can't do a 2 day or 1 day full day commitment either. I'm all on board for a committee meeting. And I think, yeah, it's important to do a review once a year, but just, I mean, unless there was something dramatically wrong with our strategic plan, yeah, okay. Maybe we need to sit down and rehash it, but I think just an overall review, and if it's one committee meeting or 2 committee meetings, great. But beyond that, if it ain't broke significantly, why are we trying to fix it, right? So to speak. So thank you.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess my biggest concern coming in this was the offsite destination. And then immediately on, it was addressed with the ability to focus. So I do appreciate that additional piece of mindset to think about that and just remind me that it's not just always one way. I appreciate other councilors' personal lives and their commitments. And it's not to say that they are not committed to this with the 2 days. Absolutely, it is difficult. And I know I'm frequently borrowing from myself in my other life to make other commitments. I would like to review this. I would like to see it. I am flexible in what it looks like. And I think, no matter what, we're going to make our time to be here. So I think my biggest ask is just that it is not an offsite location, and we maintain our costs for it in that sense. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I feel that we put a lot of time and effort into our vision of a strategic plan. Were all the outcomes of what we anticipated in our vision? That's, I guess, to be, different opinions, but I do feel we've done a reasonable job. I think we could have a committee meeting as maybe a longer discussion of an update or as a review, but I do agree that I think there's one in place, and I think that as we were a new group in 2017, for the most part, we all were very passionate, and with that street plan, not saying that we wouldn't put the same passion into it. I'm just saying that there is direction. I'm not saying it can't be reviewed with committee meeting, but I would support making the motion to have option 4. That I think status quo is administration is doing well with what direction they have in place.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I also agree with all of that I think 2 days away would be too much. And I'm probably one of the few, me and Cora, probably the few that can do it. But it is, I think, a committee meeting right now just to review it and go over the current one and just make sure we don't have any big holes that we need to fill. And then if we do find some, then maybe we can make another decision. But I think a committee meeting would be more than reasonable.
So I heard some chatter about the implications of the motion before us. And just if we can be clear with the expectations, I'm hearing the majority of councillors think that perhaps some additional time spent is a wise thing. However, an alternate location one is not really something that is going to be entertained at this particular time. Without having number 4 in front of me here, does that capture that, or does that so elect to maintain the strategic plan process as is? There was some changes outlined in here. Was that your intent, Councillor Ross?
My apologies, Council and Mayor Creasy. My interpretation of option 4 would include a committee meeting, but as you explained the interpretation, I was incorrect. So I think it is our intention to have a committee meeting, not to just have no discussion. So my apologies.
So you're suggesting you just omitted the idea of with the addition of a focus committee meeting?
Okay, let's amend option 4 and include a committee meeting. Does that serve it correctly?
Not seeing a lot of lights coming on here, so we'll see if that better captured the intent.
Do you mind if I read the motion back for approval?
I certainly wish you would.
Okay, that a council approves the proposed strategic planning review option 4, which will be amended to include a local committee meeting for implementation.
Was that your intent, Councillor Ross?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I just did want to emphasize that I do agree that we should have regular review of the strategic plan. And I feel like we had how it was built into our agendas, but I certainly support a committee meeting to have it be a little bit more in depth.
So that motion will likely be truncated. Our machines, has that already been input or? Very good. Any additional input? Seeing none, I will call vote. Excuse me. And that is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. Manager Ackett, do you care to come up and join us, please? We've got a couple of items for you. Item 6.2, which is bylaw 508 for the Campbell Block designation. That was brought forward for first reading previously, so now we're in line for second and perhaps third reading. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to present bylaw 508. And I have with me Chair of the Heritage Resource Committee, Myles Tracurtis. So we're very pleased to present. And we also have the building owner here tonight too. So I would be remiss if I didn't point that out. Bylaw 508, the purpose is to designate the Campbell Block, which was built in portions between 1899 and 1920 as a municipal historic resource. This building is located on lots 1 to 3, Block 3, Plan RN1, and the civic address is 4918 50th Avenue, so right in the heart of downtown Lacombe. And the owners have approached the City of Lacombe for municipal level designation. And this air photo here just shows the building and the property outlined in blue. And it's the current location of Home Hardware. So I think saying Home Hardware people will recognize right away which building we're talking about. This is a historic photo of the building from around sometime between 1910 and 1920 from the Historical Society. So you can see there the original portion. And the Historic Resources Act allows municipalities to designate buildings in their community as historic resources to preserve them. Lacombe is very fortunate to have many. So far, there's been 10 designated by the municipality. This would be the 11th if it was approved tonight. Here is a current photo of the property taken last year. Looking beautiful there. And the Campbell Block, so it's well known as a two-story brick-clad building. It is very prominent in the downtown. And with parts of the building, as I mentioned, built between 1899 and 1920, it is one of Lacombe's earliest remaining buildings. Architecturally, the building is significant for its style and its history as a long-time commercial center. So merchant M.J. McLeod originally constructed it and opened for business in November of 1899. Edmonton newspaper at that time referred to it as the finest store in Alberta. And the store really became a cornerstone for Lacombe. It survived two major fires that devastated the downtown and destroyed many structures, both in 1906 and 1911. And this building, I think, had some damage but survived. In 1905, Mr. McLeod left Lacombe to become the province's first deputy treasurer, so that's sort of interesting. And then the building was eventually purchased by A.M. Campbell. In 1920, he redeveloped the site into a more up-to-date department store. And the new portion of the building, which is the east wing, was modern brick and metal, modern in 1920. And it was joined with the original wood frame store, which is the west wing that we know today. They were really developed to appear as one. And so when you're looking at it today, you can't really tell, to the untrained eye, such as mine, I can't really tell that it was two portions. But it certainly still features that red brick cladding. It still has the Chicago style architecture, which is the large second story windows, the cornice, and the brick parapet. And you can see in the photo here where those elements remain today. So the Heritage Resource Committee met on October 11th and unanimously voted to recommend support of the designation bylaw. And so it is recommended by administration and joined by the Heritage Resource Committee that Council gives second and third reading to bylaw 508 as presented. And this is a bylaw to designate the Campbell Block as a municipal historic resource. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I appreciate it. I was just curious, can you go back to the lot, the very first slide that you had in your presentation? And I see that yep, that one right there. So there is basically it looks like two buildings there. So the north portion, which is a substantially newer portion of that building. And I'm just curious why it was indicated as two. Are we utilizing both? Are these on a separate title, or what was the purpose of that?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think that might be just the way our GIS system shows. It shows the building outline as well as the lot. And so in this case, it kind of shows it as two outlines. So it is a little bit confusing in this drawing.
I guess that's my question then. If in fact that is the lot, then are we okay doing two of them in one bylaw like this?
Yes, because it is designating, if I go back one more, lots 1 to 3 are at this civic address. So they are considered one property. And I'll just confirm that with the building owner. It's one property. Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for confirming.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This is a no-brainer. This is an outstanding building that makes our downtown better by a lot. So I will make the motion that council give second reading to bylaw 508 as presented.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please go ahead and vote. Very good. I appreciate the we will do that then. So I would at this time ask with a show of hands for this vote. All those in favor indicate now. And any opposed, if so, that is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I very happily make the motion that council give third reading to bylaw 508 as presented.
Thank you. And I'm going to assume that thank you for that indication from our IT at the back of the room. Appreciate that. So this will be another show of hands, this vote. And I'm going to ask one last time for input. Seeing none, then we will put it to a vote by show of hands. All those in favor? And against, there are none. So that is unanimously in favor as well. That bylaw is therefore enacted. And we will move into item 6.3, bylaw 510 for the Presbyterian Manse designation. Once again, proposed for second and third reading. Manager Hackett.
Thank you again, Mayor Creasy. Bylaw 510 is another municipal historic resource designation, and this is to designate the Presbyterian Manse, which is located on Lot C, Plan 8396 AM, which is 5214 53rd Street. And the owners, again, have approached the City of Lacombe for this level of designation. The building is located in the residential portion of downtown, shown outlined in blue. And this photograph, or this air photo, shows a little bit better with the building outlined and the lot. Here it is a private home as of now. And again, the Act allows municipalities to designate. So this would be, I guess, the 12th municipal designation if it is approved. This is a historic photo of the home around 1910, and you can see it here in the center of the picture. And that's what it looks like today. So many of the features continue to be intact. This was taken this winter. The Presbyterian Manse is a 1.5-story L-shaped home, and it has many of the original architectural elements remaining. It has a very interesting history because the land that it's situated on was one of the original homesteads established in 1895 in Lacombe. And the property was subdivided in 1899 into multiple lots. And so the house was built on this lot in 1902, so it is a 1902 home. And in 1903, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church at that time, it's now the United Church, purchased the property as the home for their minister. And so a manse is the minister's or the pastor's home. It was later reverted to a private ownership, but that is the association with St. Andrew's. On November 15th, the Heritage Resource Committee unanimously recommended support of the designation bylaw. And it is recommended by administration jointly with the committee that council gives second and third reading to bylaw 510 as presented to designate the Presbyterian Manse as a municipal historic resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jakurta, did you have anything to add? I see.
I've never actually been here in person over the last few years. I've always been beaming in, so this is new. I'm just, on behalf of the HRC, I think we're very excited to see this property in particular get designation because it would be our second residential building in town. And working with the property owners, it's exciting to see an example like this where we can preserve our history, but also be concerned with updating the building, making sure and assisting the owners that they have energy efficient walls and they're not freezing to death in some of the rooms, which has been a problem. So there's options other than tearing things down. And we're just very happy to see this one. And one thing we left out in the report, but it's a really cool thing. If you notice on the front of the building, there's 2 doors. And it's part of that usage of a MATS. There is a public and a private entrance, which I found very exciting. I actually used last week in some of my lectures at the U of A on domestic space and domestic use in ancient Rome. So I'm just happy to get this designated.
Perhaps more amazingly, it's still intact now to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderfully preserved over the years and in wonderful condition.
Well, I know, Mr. Chigurda, you work hand in hand with both Manager Hackett and our Senior Development Officer, Jennifer Kirk, on producing these documents for Council's review. And we appreciate all of the work that you and or as the chair and the rest of the Heritage Resources Committee do on our behalf. So thank you for that. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think Mayor Creasy said it excellent there. And then also, I think it kind of feels like a little gift when we get to do these because I'm not actively searching out the history on these buildings and looking for pictures from the past. And so when they get shared here, it's just incredible. And then it's always a joy to be able to drive by with somebody and say something interesting. And so, you know, like I think you guys are doing great work, and then we get to be a part of it just kind of by association. But it's great to be able to learn it. So I'll make the motion that council give second reading to bylaw 510 as presented.
Thanks, Councillor Dallas. Any additional comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Please go ahead and do so. Thank you for that confirmation. And that is unanimously in favor for second reading of bylaw 510. Councillor Connick.
I would so move that council give third reading to bylaw 510 as presented.
Thank you for that. There are no other comments that I can see, so please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Thank you both. Senior Manager McKinnon. Next up for item 6.4, everybody's favorite taxes. So the supplementary assessment for the 2024 taxes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Good evening, Mayor Creasy and Council. This evening, I'm here to present for your consideration the second and third reading of the supplementary assessment for 2024 taxes. The city levies taxes twice a year. The general levy is in the spring and due on June 30th. The taxation is based on the annual assessments prepared as of December 31st of the previous year. The second levy is for supplementary assessments. If a new building or addition to an existing building is completed in the calendar year, a supplementary assessment is prepared and representing that increase in the value of the property. The supplementary taxes are prorated and levied at the end of December with a March 1st due date. Bylaw 512 allows the city to assess improvements after December 31st, 2023. Property taxes are imposed only on those improvements and prorated for the remainder of the year. New construction raises approximately $60,000 in taxes each year. And the motions before council tonight are to give second and third reading to bylaw 512 and to repeal bylaw 503 through that bylaw.
Appreciate that Manager McKinnon. And having a tremendous amount of, there we go. Counselor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I don't have any concerns with this. This is something that we do regularly. So I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 512 supplementary assessment.
Thank you. Counselor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a quick question on with the changes that are happening with the economy and inflation and so on. Is there an opportunity for us to lower our tax rate that we approved earlier? I think we're at 3.5%, I believe, correct?
The tax rate bylaw was approved, or the
Did we
tax
not-
rate increase was approved. The bylaw hasn't come forward for approval yet.
Right.
So the tax rate increase proposed was 3.75%.
Yeah, and that's when we would be able to make a change to that rate if it was possible. Like some of us feel that it should go down, or one of us does anyway. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I've seen this now and I understand it's a formality. In regards to that, has there been any concerns brought up to administration or in regards to the way this works that it needs reviewing, or is it just kind of should remain status quo?
Thank you. In fact, it's a common practice among a lot of municipalities, and the government is now doing supplementary assessments as well for linear assets. So we are getting increased bills based on what the province is assessing for telecommunications and linear assets as well. So it's becoming an increasing popular function to do to catch the construction that happens mid-year and is completed mid-year to pay for part of the municipal services that they receive. So no concerns that we've heard.
Motion. Thank you. Forgive me, just updating my notes here. So we do have motion on the floor. Counselor Hibbs. Any additional comments? Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor and support as well. Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move that council gives third reading to bylaw 512 supplementary assessment.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor for third and final reading. So that bylaw becomes active as well. And by approving this, is the deletion of the former one is contained within part of that. I know that was a bit of a new way, which is quite frankly a far cleaner way to do it. So thank you for that. Director Piche, item 6.6, the bylaw 511 municipal police commission bylaw of hopefully for third and final reading this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and good evening, Council. This evening, administration is presenting third reading of bylaw 511, the Municipal Police Commission bylaw. Just a reminder of how we got here. Council has reviewed this, the old bylaw 78 on October 10th, and also with the Police Commission on October 16th. The collaborative meeting allowed both groups to suggest changes and encourage discussion to understand each other's point of view. The first reading of the Municipal Police Commission Bylaw 511 was presented to Council on November 27th, 2023. On January 11th, 2024, the Lacombe Police Commission reviewed the draft bylaw and suggested some amendments for second reading on January 22nd of 2024. Council did approve a second reading as amended. And just as a reminder, some of those amendments are removing the term municipal in the commission definition, change the number of commission members to not less than 7 and no more than 10 members, where 5 will be from the public and 2 members will be from council. The other 3 members will be provincially appointed. All commission members must complete a security clearance. The term public was inserted into the meetings of the commission section. The clause, and unless all matters on the agenda are to be discussed in camera, was included in section 6.3, explaining when the public would or would not be provided 24 hours written notice should a special meeting be called. And for section 7.1b, which states the chair shall be responsible for the conduct of a meeting, an additional clause was added stating that in their absence, the vice chair shall be responsible for the conduct of the meeting. In section 10.1, it was changed to read that the CAO or their designate shall attend the commission meetings as a non-voting participant and shall be excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the commission to remain. In section 11, the board secretary to the commission had some clauses added, and they are to be excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the commission to remain, to be subject to a duty of confidentiality to the commission as if a member of the commission, and be subject to a security clearance. And the last amendment that was made was under section 19, authorization of expenditures, where the clause and the authority of this chief administrative officer to the city was removed, indicating that once a budget is approved, the police chief has the authority to spend funds subject to the city's purchasing policies. At the February 8th commission meeting, there was another review of the amended drafts, and they asked for one, they did request one slight change, and that is to add or delegate in section 7.1b, where if neither the chair nor the vice chair can attend a meeting, that a delegate can be appointed. And should council see fit to include that amendment, administration is requesting that a motion be made for that change and then another motion for third reading to pass the bylaw. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Thank you, Director Piche. It's been an extensive process. We appreciate your diligence and patience as well. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, I also echo those thanks for, it's been good though. It's been a really good process. I will make that motion, but before I do that, I just have to ask a question. If this bylaw passes third reading, do we have an understanding of how we would implement it? Because currently we have 6 members from the public on the commission and only 1 councillor. Like, would we wait till the end of the term? Like, is there thoughts about how this will be implemented in terms of the membership?
That has not been discussed with CAO Gowdy or myself at this time, so we would probably bring a plan forward for you.
May I follow?
Certainly.
Just as information, there are 2 commissioners that would be finished their term at the end of this year. And I think there's a desire that they can finish that term, but I'm just giving that as information. May I follow again? I would like to make that motion that council amends the Municipal Police Commission bylaw 511 to include the term or delegate in section 7.1b.
Appreciate that, Councillor Hoekstra. And I guess just once again, the idea behind the renaming or the renumbering of the bylaw, given that it's been 40 some years or thereabouts, that bylaw 78, I think, or a tremendous amount of the public and past commission people that see the operations of that department under bylaw 78. And now it's going to be 511, which is fine. But just so we've got it on record, once again, that's the reasoning behind that, please.
So the reasoning behind the change was that there is a lot of different legislation that contributed to us reviewing the bylaw. The police act has been reviewed. So, pardon me, the preamble of the whereas clauses, to be able to add those in, it was cleaner to add or to create a new bylaw than to amend the old bylaw. But there are a lot of clauses that are still in there from the old bylaw.
Thank you, Director Piche. Appreciate that. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. But that does beg the question, is the other one, are we rescinding that old one then? Is that built into this? It is.
Not unlike the previous one that we discussed for the rescindment of it. For a couple of reasons, it prevents that overlap and duplication of them, and one less for administration or us to forget about. So I think that's the appropriate way to do it. We don't need two active bylaws to add to confusion. I think probably one of the finer examples of that was not that it was intentional, but over the years there was an awful lot of bylaws and agreements made with some of our partners, specifically the county, and it became rather cumbersome figuring out which one was current and whatnot. That those have been cleaned up as well, but I think this is just a far cleaner system. Thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Hoekstra. So with respect to bylaw 511, third reading as brought forward by Councillor Hoekstra, are there any additional questions or comments? I'm sorry.
If I may,
Councillor
Mayor
Hoekstra.
Creasy, I just made the motion about the or delegate. That motion is on the floor first.
My apologies. Thank you. Given my faux pas there, could you please reread the motion before us then?
You bet. That council amends the Municipal Police Commission bylaw 511 to include the term or delegate in section 7.1B.
Thank you. And has administration had an opportunity to input that item yet? Very good. Any additional input? Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously voted in favor. Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra, you are the member for the Lacombe Police Commission. Would you like an opportunity? This one as well?
You bet.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that council approves the third reading of the Municipal Police Commission bylaw 511 as amended.
Thank you. Questions or concerns, anyone? I guess the one thing that I recall from the last meeting, there was perhaps, I'm not going to say concern, but there was a question if in fact the remainder of the commission had been made aware of some of the changes implementation. And I wasn't sure if that was discussed in a public meeting or not, but I'll just give you an opportunity to go over that publicly now to set the record straight, Director Piche.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Absolutely. The commission was eligible to review the bylaw. They did it on the, I believe the 8th of January was the first time that they were able to, 11th of January. And then again, just at the very first meeting, which was the 8th of February this month for the second amendments, which is how they came to propose the or delegate on the change there.
Very good. And since the meeting when that was discussed here, have there been any members express any concerns about that process?
No.
And the collaboration with council?
No, thank you, Mayor Creasy. If anything, they were all very grateful and they appreciated to be able to be included in the decision and this discussion about the bylaw, and they've really enjoyed the collaboration of it.
I thought you would like the opportunity to bring that up, so thank you for that. If there is no other input, then let's go ahead and vote. Okay, for third reading of bylaw 511 for the Municipal Police Commission bylaw, that is voted unanimously in favor for third and final reading, and the end of this meeting is implemented. So thank you for that. I know that was a long time coming, but well worth the process. Thank you, Director Piche. Next item up is 6.6, I believe, on request for decision. Councillor Gullickson, you had brought forward a notice of motion from February 12th, and I will give you the floor now to read it in to the record and initiate discussion if you so wish.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. My motion is that council direct administration to bring for council's consideration a plan to use recycled asphalt millings as a surface improvement for the east-west portion of the Michener Park parking lot. Thank you, Mayor Creasy, for the opportunity to speak to this. It's the area, of course, where the farmers market is. We have a lot of citizens use that have mobility issues and so on. And certainly when it's wet and muddy, it becomes a real problem. This is an opportunity to improve that without paving it, which is very expensive, but still make it better for the market, which is seen by a lot of our citizens and visitors alike. I think it's a good opportunity to use this material. I know it's designated right now for our public works parking lot. I think it's more important for us to have good surfaces for our citizens than our employees, to be honest with you. I mean, we can deal with a little bit of mud, I think, at Public Works, but it is something I'd like to see done, and I'd like to know how much it's going to cost, of course, and that's what this motion is all about. It's not about doing it for sure. It's about getting an estimate and provide some options on how we can do it most efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gullickson. Acting CEO Thompson, you obviously have a very good knowledge of city processes in this regard. And I'm kind of torn on this one. This kind of eases into operational items. However, I think it is important to the public and obviously to at least one councillor, and I expect probably more. With our upcoming capital works plan, will there be opportunity for additional millings? I guess I'm just, if we're gonna formulate some sort of a plan, I think that ought to be taken into consideration rather than perhaps utilizing existing stockpiles, which, I mean, I don't know, may or may not have been earmarked for a project, or if future millings could be better utilized there, as Councillor Gullickson said, perhaps at a lower cost or something. That's something that we would certainly be interested in, or I would be. Would you care to speak to that at all?
Sure, and thanks for the opportunity, Mayor Creasy. So what I heard from Councillor Gullickson that were priorities with the use of millings in this location were low cost and to improve accessibility for residents who at the farmers market. And so I think to accomplish those two things, you're touching on something that I think is important for us to consider when we're developing a plan, if should council decide to pass this motion. It is the most efficient way to deploy millings in this area will be to coordinate it with a capital works program, especially from a cost perspective. because in order to ensure that the surface of these millings are adequately placed and relatively smooth, we want to do some selective base work in different parts of the parking lot so that water, for drainage reasons. We'd want to look at different additives to the millings themselves so that they shed water and aren't as susceptible to potholes and freeze thaw breakage, I'll call it, over the winter season. And so that becomes a bit of a project, just to make sure that the use of those millings will achieve the intended purpose, not just in year 1, but year 2, year 3, year 4, and ensure that we can maintain that type of surface for some time. One of the things to keep in mind is the millings, when they come off a road, they're not necessarily uniform, like a gravel would be out of a gravel pit or a screened gravel pit. They come in all there. Some are small chunks, some are large chunks, some are huge chunks. They just kind of get ripped off the road, and sometimes they don't go through the milling machine and get crushed into a uniform manner. And so it's something we'd want to look at is if screening and crushing of those millings is required in order to achieve that uniform surface for accessibility and those who may have mobility challenges, if that's a target audience and really the intended purpose of this motion. And so I don't know if I answered your question, Mayor Creasy, but certainly I want to highlight a few things related to the use of millings. They are definitely a community resource or a resource to the city. And we currently have the millings stockpiled at the Public Works facility. I'll call it quote unquote allocated or intended use. We plan on using them. When we bring forward a plan, again, if council were to pass this motion, we'll present a few options for council's consideration for the use of millings based on our existing inventory and potentially the use of future millings from a Capital Works program. I'm not sure how much millings we'll get from this year's Capital Works program and if it's sufficient to provide coverage for the whole parking lot, but it's something we can estimate and take a look at.
You know, I appreciate that. I think that somewhere there's got to be some sort of a system whereby we're not expending a tremendous amount of money, in which case we might just as well go whole hog and asphalt it, which quite frankly is extremely cost prohibitive given the limited amount of use that it sees. So somewhere there has to be something in here that we can do to improve the experience there and get rid of the water and mud. And from my perspective, even if it takes a few years, is really not the end of the world. It doesn't have to happen in one cycle, but I think it's something that we should certainly try and identify some sort of a plan to work towards for sure. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I do sincerely appreciate the intention. I think it's been expressed, for in some way, I think it's like more cost effective. First question is, are the millings intended for the Public Works, and or is Public Works going to be paved? Secondly, I guess might be one of the millings if you do repave C&E Trail from 63rd to the traffic circle, that was considered, depending upon administration being back that information at a later date for 2024 capital projects. Also, oh shoot, that was on my mind. Anyways, that was my main questions. What for the Public Works, is that what the intention is to use, is the millings, or are we paving that?
So to Councillor Ross, the public portion of the parking lot that is, say, public facing, where the public would park right at the main entrance, that would be paved. Our land use bylaw requires that to be paved, and so that would be paved properly as you would see it in a paved parking lot in any new construction. The yard itself, so behind the public facing area, that is, say by default, intentions are have that be gravel, but we want to use the millings to abate the dust that an active site like that would generate on our neighbors. And so we want to use as much of the millings as we could to abate dust. And so that was our intended purpose for those millings that are on site today.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. That did actually partially answer my comment, but I was going to say that this motion is just to bring something forward for consideration. So I totally appreciate that. Although I also don't want to send you on a big job that I'm not really considering. So I am going to support this motion because I think it's interesting enough that I would like to support it potentially, but I need more information. And I definitely would appreciate that as part of that, bringing back that information, that a very good understanding of what millings are typically used for, what they can and cannot really be successful in, because I'm not in that, that's not my scope of practice. I'm not very familiar with the differences between asphalt millings and proper paving. And I think that would be valuable information to really understand what we're trying to achieve, and would that in fact actually achieve what we want? And then also what the financial implications are.
So faced with this decision before council, would you be comfortable giving us some sort of an estimate of what we are looking at, either in workload or cost figures for a usable plan to be brought forward?
So Mayor Christie, I think that depends on we'll present options. Certainly what we would come forward with a recommendation, which would include some selective base work, the additives to the millings, screening and crushing the millings. I can't see that being less than $150,000 to $200,000 as a project. Certainly cheaper than paving, but not a freebie by any means. The product itself certainly is valuable and utilized by the city in other ways, but I would say no less than $150,000 to $200,000 to implement a project like this. But there are other, say, levels of service that we can look at that prioritize cheaper cost over longevity or smoothness of the surface, or other versions of constructing or utilizing the millings in that location.
Right, and that's great information to have. However, with respect to just the plan portion of what to do, just to give council a better idea what we're either committing to or not this evening by asking for this plan, is this a $5,000 thing or a $50,000 thing? Is it a tremendous amount of use of yours and engineering services time? What are we looking at here?
No, I wouldn't say it's a tremendous use of our time. We have a number of cost estimates from the past that we would draw upon. We would use a combination of consultant resources and internal resources to look at various options. So Mayor Creasy may be looking at a few $1,000s to put together a plan for council's consideration.
Thank you, appreciate that. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. That was my question. It was that actual cost too, but I also, where have we used millings before? Where have you used it in town? So we can go look at a site maybe that has had millings put on it. Is there?
So we reached out to the roads manager, and he had highlighted a few examples of millings, and there's various locations, and we've applied them in different ways and used different products in the past. One being the Northwest Rec Area parking lot. That's in the northwest of Lacombe at the very end of Woodland Drive, where the soccer fields are. So that one's a location. We've used millings in and around the campground, Michener campground, in the past. And the Upper Michener lot back in the day. So it looks like in 2009, we used millings up in the Upper Michener area at some point. So what I can do, Councillor Gullickson, is I can highlight some of these on a map and send that to council, just as a reference for.
That'd be great. Did we run in the millings through a crusher then too, to use them? Just uniform the size, like Or did we just put them on those surfaces?
We've used different methodologies, but we have had to manually pull out large chunks of asphalt. So if we've used them in smaller locations, it's manageable for our own crews to when the dump truck dumps them to pull out. We have to physically go out and pick it up or use a bobcat to remove the larger chunks. But the project that we're considering as part of this motion would be quite substantial and may not be.
Well, it wouldn't be, was the whole parking lot done up at the soccer field, you know?
Yeah, the whole parking lot.
So it would be similar size to that.
Over the course of, I'd say that at that time, the parking lot was over the course of 1 or 2 seasons, and yeah, it was done manually. So it was like a special project that was dedicated for those crews for some time.
Okay.
To take care of.
All right. Well, it seems like, yeah, the cost seems high to me, but we'll find out. You'll bring costs back to us, hopefully, that we can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Councillor Konik.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Yeah, I'll support the motion at this time. I'm looking for more information, more to Councillor Hibbs's point. And I'm glad you mentioned the soccer pitch parking lot, because I've been up there a few times and it just seems like it's gravel to me. I never even realized there were millings in that. So I get where Councillor Gullick's going from, but I'm not even entirely sure if what he wants to achieve can be done with the millings, because it seems to me that's still very much and I get it makes sense for public works because mixing it in with the gravel would alleviate the dust, but yeah, I kind of guess looking for more information on what it would look like in the end. Like, it's not a paved smooth surface by any means. It's yeah. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? And we have the motion on the floor. Does anybody care to have it reread to them? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. Very good. I believe I saw a lot of green. I don't know if it was everyone or not. It was unanimous. Oh, there we go. Very good. So it flashes through. So we can look forward to a plan being brought forward sometime at a future meeting later on this year. We have no additional new notices of motion. However, we had approved a couple of in-camera items, I think is where we're at here. So I'll go ahead and read the next meetings for those watching online. First one is a committee of the whole meeting for Monday, March the 4th. Once again, all of these meetings are here in City Hall in council chambers at 5:30 p.m. The first regular meeting is March 11th, same venue and time, and then again on March 25th. So those are our 3 upcoming meetings as well. And I believe that takes us to our in-camera items. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would like to make a motion to move in camera.
Very good. It is 6:51. And we can go ahead and vote, please. Very good. We are now in camera.